Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Burns with On Hand Schools, and I have Carrie Ann Lawns joining the call this afternoon as well. We wanted to give it a couple minutes here to try to allow for a few other registrants to join us, but we also want to be respectful of your time, so we will be getting things underway here. Carrie Ann is really the lead project manager on this. For those of you that have worked with her in the past, she's very well versed in this, and ultimately wanted to bring her into the dialogue here just to kind of give a little bit of a background on the Kandoolu tool itself, our personalized learning navigator, kind of start from where it was conceptualized to where it is now. And then we're certainly going to take some time here this afternoon to walk through a brief demonstration of how to build a quick test, if you will, or check for understanding on a student or a group of students, and just run through some of the functionality that's involved with this, and all the various components that make this tool up. So I'm going to hand things over to Carrie Ann here initially, and then we'll just be bouncing back and forth. What I would like to note is you can feel free to ask questions throughout the session. We are monitoring that in a chat area, so we'll be sure to address those if they come in. And then we're certainly going to be sending some information out afterwards as well, just as a follow-up, kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive into the philosophy behind personalized learning, and then ultimately address any other Q&A that might need to happen from there. So Carrie Ann?
Okay. Hello, everybody. I also wanted to mention that along with the webinar that we will send out, we will also send out the link to our extensive help center. So if there's anything that we're glossing over things pretty quickly today. So if there's something you missed, we have help articles and help videos and things like that as well. So we'll send those out after the webinar. So we're going to jump right in here. Welcome to Kandoolu. And we should probably start by talking about what is Kandoolu. So Kandoolu started as a formative assessment tool. And we have teacher-created content in there. It was all created by what we called great teachers, and they were recommended by district superintendents and principals in the Southwest Pennsylvania area. It's really easy to use, and it allows teachers to very quickly create assessments to check the temperature of their classroom. Everything in here is also aligned to the PA Core eligible content, so right down to that skill level, as well as to the U.S. Common Core standards. And when a teacher goes in and gives a quiz, they can quickly see a real-time snapshot of how everybody is doing and see who's grasping the concepts and who isn't. They can quickly adjust their lesson pace depending on how students are doing. So maybe if everybody understands a concept, they can jump ahead. Or if students are struggling, they can actually pause right there and reteach a topic or dive into it a little bit further. We've also addressed the misconceptions that students typically make when taking an assessment. So you'll notice once we jump into Kandoolu that every question has logical distractors. Those are the wrong answers that students might choose. And along with the distractors, you will see a common misconception identified that students might make while taking the quiz. So we spent a lot of time on these assessment questions. And since they were written by teachers, who better to really know what misconceptions that students make? And then the other part of Kandoolu is a resource bank. So we have tons of resources that have also been vetted by teachers that are also aligned to the PA Core standards as well as the U.S. Common Core standards. And resources are automatically recommended based on how students do on the quiz. So a quick example is if a student is really struggling on a quiz topic, a resource will get pushed out to their device that would typically be a video or something that reteaches the concept. Or if a student is really excelling and they've mastered a skill, Kandoolu will recommend and push out something like a game where they can apply what they know and practice what they've already mastered. It is a web-based solution, so there's no downloads required. It fits on any size screen, so even if you are working off a cell phone or something like that, you don't have to scroll forever to the left or right. It all just shrinks down, and we can show you an example of that later. So it's really nice that it is device agnostic, so whether you're Apple School or Chromebook School or HP, we can make it work for you. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it's math right now, grades 3 through 8. But we are also in beta mode for math grades 1 and 2, along with Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. And those will be coming out in full mode this fall for everyone to access. And then also this fall, we will be having ELA content, grades 1 through 8 in the system. And in 2018, we will have high school courses for ELA as well. So we kind of categorize this as a personalized learning tool. We know that the phrase personalized learning can be really daunting and kind of scary. Nobody knows where to start. Nobody's gutting curriculum. But we think that Kandoolu is a nice stepping stone to get into personalized learning. The resources help to differentiate learning for students. We like to think Kandoolu is engaging, not only because it's on a device, which is where students want to be, but we also have things like badges and trophies, and we let students make a lot of their own choices, like choosing resources that they wish to use, or choosing if they would like how they learn best. Maybe they want a video, or maybe they want a practice activity. So even though personalized learning seems really ambitious, Kandoolu can help you take a step in that direction. And we've all seen that we've all seen evidence from research that shows that personalized learning helps increase achievement, especially for struggling students. And then before we dive in and give a demo, I just want to point out a few ways we've seen teachers using Kandoolu. That way, as you're watching Mike dive in and show you the different features, you can keep these in mind and see if these would work for you, or maybe you can identify other ways that you might use Kandoolu. So one way that we're seeing it used is after teachers give a benchmark exam, they can identify the weaknesses students are having and really write by eligible content so they can see the exact skill they're struggling on. They can then go in Kandoolu and search for resources that will help that student, push out the resources, students can practice, they can learn, and then you can give a post-quiz, post-test right in Kandoolu to see if they've increased their understanding of that skill. So it really can help to prepare for the PSSA or any other state test. Like I mentioned before, a lot of teachers like to adjust the lesson pace based on how students are answering questions in a quiz. The misconceptions is huge. We've had students that all answer a question incorrectly and all choose the same wrong answer. Well, that allows the teacher to very quickly see a pattern and see what the misconception is for the answer they're choosing. So you can pause the quiz right then and address that with your class. We've seen a lot of second day reviews. So you teach a concept on the first day, and then on the second day, you can quickly check the temperature of your classroom and see if the students understood it or if you need to spend more time on that. And then lastly, you can skip the whole quiz process and jump right to the resource bank. And you can actually go right in there and search for resources and push them out to individual students or groups or your entire roster. So many different ways. We've been calling them use cases or just creative ways to use Kandoolu. Many different things have been coming out of this lately. So now Mike is actually going to jump in and give a quick demo. And I think it's pulled up behind that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Carrie Ann. Yeah, and just to circle back here real quick, Carrie Ann's mentioning a couple different ways that we're hearing feedback from how to go about strategically utilizing a tool like this. And with this time of year, with us coming into testing season, often you can go back and take a look at that benchmark data that you have. You can start to identify some of those areas of weakness. You can go in with this, and whether you're creating a quick formative assessment to check for understanding or get the pulse on student, for individual student, or your entire roster, or a certain class, as she mentioned, you can also just send out these resources. So you are really able to kind of work this in and target those individual deficiencies and really try to keep them on pace for the upcoming testing season. So there's a couple ways that you can do quizzing through Kandoolu, and we're going to focus on what's known as a teacher view quiz today. So when you're brought in and you log in, you'll see I'm logged in the top right-hand corner as the teacher itself. Along the left-hand tab here, we have a lot of different drillable content, such as quizzes, results from past quizzes, any resources where you can go in and you can search, and we're going to dig back into this here momentarily. Anything that you have sent out or recommended, anything that you've bookmarked over time. And then ultimately, going down into your students, you can take a look at different student groups that you've built, or one-offs, or an entire roster of students that you might have. The trophies is something we're going to circle back to as well. Again, just kind of lending itself to the whole personalized learning and the user profile of these students. And then the account admin is not really something that you need to concern yourselves with, as that's just more of a back-end side of things. So for starting a quiz, you're going to see that this is a very straightforward, heavy point and click environment. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to create a quiz itself from scratch. Now, as you come through here, you're going to go down through a couple filtering options and a couple different options. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to say that this quiz is going to be for 4th grade. As we mentioned, right now it's only available for 3 through 8 math, but everything else is coming. So we're going to focus in on 4th grade math. And then we're going to choose a reporting category here. So for this, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say operations and algebraic thinking. When you click next, it's going to take you down to the next section here. And this is a multi-check area. So if there's certain focus points you want to hone in on, if you want to use all 3 of these, or perhaps just one of them, you can go ahead and pick and choose for doing so. So again, I'm only going to choose one here for the demonstration itself. Now the same thing with the skills here. You can have the students focusing on various skills. You can have them focusing on one in particular. Again, just going in, we're going to pick one for the sake of this demonstration, and we'll just pick this top one here for interpret a multiplication equation as a comparison. Now you'll see that it's kind of a built-in workflow where it's just taking you down through step by step, and not a whole lot of searching that has to occur. From there, it's going to give it a default name for the quiz itself. So that's based off of the standards that we're honing in on. If you'd like, you can call this something that's more custom so that you can do a quick search at a later date. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this my sample quiz. And that's for today. From there, it's time to start to pick the questions in particular that we want to incorporate into this quick test. So you'll see along the top, we have the name itself. You can always go back and edit this information. You'll see again, 4th grade math and the standards we're focusing on. Right here is a tally that you'll start to see add up as I pick and choose through this deck of cards or these deck of questions. Now for this particular standard and eligible content, we have 8 items available. That'll vary throughout, obviously, but for this we have 1 through 8. I can get an overview of the question itself. I can go down and I can see the correct answer as well as the incorrect answers. And then some other information along the bottom, such as like a DOK level, where it's falling in as easy, moderate, or advanced, if you will. And then if you're reviewing this as a teacher or a user and you see that there might be something wrong with this question, it's gone through extensive vetting already, but every now and then if you come across something, you can always report an issue back to us. Maybe it's the answer is incorrect, or the question doesn't make sense, or it's confusing for students, something else. This is going to be sent directly to our support team here, which is on top of these all throughout the day. So they're very good at retrieving these if they are sent in, and then resolving the issue in a matter of moments ultimately, and being able to get that corrected within the system. So for adding a question, you'll see along the top here, you can just click this Add It button, which is a plus sign. I can scroll through the deck and I can kind of get a feel for what we're working with here. So maybe I don't necessarily like that question or that one, but I like this one because it involves some of the bar graphing involved. So I'm going to add that as well. Continuing to cycle through, we can add this one. And then ultimately adding one more. Now you can make this a 3-question quiz, a 5 or 8 or 10, just depending upon how many items we have available in each. As you scroll up to the top, we're going to be able to save this quiz and move to the next step. And this is going to bring us back to the resources that Carrie Ann was talking about. So right here, you're going to be able to have resources that you pick prior to giving the test that you maybe want students to focus in on. Or you're going to be able to allow the system to go out and suggest resources automatically, again, falling on an area of struggle. So since I've only selected one standard here, typically what would occur is once the results come in from the live data, the system will identify the areas of struggle on those standards and then go out and suggest resources based upon that. And that's usually what you're going to see at below grade level, at grade level, or above grade level. And those resources can vary from anything from learning activities to videos, to reteaching, to little apps or games, just depending on what they are. So for this, I'm actually going to go out, I'm going to start to pick some resources here. Now, these little helpful tips you're going to find throughout, and it's just a nice little quick look at kind of giving you an idea of what this page consists of and what you can do with this. So you'll see right here along the top, we have the below grade level resources, and this is going to be sent to any students that are scoring 0 to 59%. Below that, we're going to have at grade level. This is 60 to 99, and then above grade level will be those students scoring 100% on this. So going back through here at the below grade level resources, I can take a look. This is from the Khan Academy. It's a video, and it's at or below grade level. And if I wanted to, there's two eligible content that this pertains to, but I can actually show a description of what this is. If I want to visit this resource, you can do so by clicking Visit Resource. It will take you out to that website. It'll just give you a little alert that you're leaving Kandoolu, but you are able to move forward. And that way you can kind of take a look at this site, in particular, this resource that comes with that. So I'm going to add two resources from here. We'll say I want to pick a video, but I'm also going to go and try to find a skill or a practice activity. Same thing for the at grade level. Right here we have a skill or a practice activity, being able to see the description. Again, always being able to report an issue if you feel the need to do so. We're going to add this. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to find a game as well. And then for the above grade level, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a practice activity, a game, and perhaps a video. Now, I'm going to use these resources because I've gone in and I've suggested that these are the ones that are sent out to these students that are falling in the appropriate categories. And I can review the quiz before I give it. Now on here, there's a couple of management tools, if you will, where I can go ahead and I can reorder the structure of the quiz itself by moving this question down, or perhaps moving this one up, or switching them in and out. But that's up to you and up to the user itself. You can always add additional questions, and then you'll see at the bottom that you have a total of 7 resources selected, and then you'll see those resources below each. So the next step is actually giving the quiz out itself. So we're going to go ahead and I should mention that you can save this for a later time. It's not as though it's something you have to create this quiz and give it right on the spot. I've heard feedback from maybe even utilizing it as a homework assignment, or you know, something that you can do where you create it in the evening, give it out at the beginning of the class, and then maybe circle back through and give another one towards the end. I know you're limited on time as teachers throughout the day, but this is one way that you can certainly go ahead and use this as a tactic.
And Mike, I just want to add that when we first designed Kandoolu, we actually had it pushing out resources automatically without the teacher even having a say of what went to the students. We would just say, okay, the student scored this, they get these below grade level activities. But we actually do a lot of focus groups and a lot of surveys, and we spend time in classrooms actually talking to teachers and students. We realize that teachers actually do want to be in the driver's seat. They just need it to be really easy. So that's where we came up with the compromise of showing those little decks of cards with resources that are recommended for those students. However, the teacher does have the ultimate say if they want to, you know, they could choose to send 0 resources, or they might want to just send them for below and at grade level and then pull the above grade level students aside to work on the next skill, you know, because they've already mastered it. So we've seen this used in a bunch of different ways. It's how creative you want to get with it and how you choose to use it in your classroom, really.
Yep, and that's a great point. Okay, so let's go ahead and give this quiz to the students that we're going to pick here on the next page. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 ways that you can go ahead and give this test out. You can either do it as self-guided, where the student's going to be taking this at their own pace. The nice thing with that is they can go ahead and move backward and forward within the questions. They can kind of take ownership of that and go along as they feel, you know, maybe a little bit more confident about answering each question. The teacher-led is how we're going to conduct this here on the demonstration today. That's really going to be a lockstep, if you will, the entire way, where I'm dictating when the next question goes out to the students. So once I see the results come in, I can then go ahead and push them to the next question, and we'll kind of walk through that here in a moment. So choosing your groups. This could be a group you've already created. It could be all of the students that you have assigned to your roster. It could be certain students. If there's a student that was not in school today, but you still want them to partake in this and get some data back from them, you can go ahead and push this out individually to students as well. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and pick my 3rd period demo students. And now we're going to enter the quiz room. So what Carrie Ann's going to be doing here is logging in on a couple different mobile devices. As she said, with the responsive design, this is going to look the same as it would on a Chromebook, to an iPad, to an iPhone itself. You'll see right here one student has joined. They are simply doing so by receiving this access code. Much like on my screen, this would be the student's profile, and to the left they would have a little alert that they've received a new quiz from me today. They would click on that, go ahead and log in with the code that is provided. You'll see both of my students have signed in, so I'm going to go ahead and start the quiz. Now, a few things I want to point to on this page. This is a classroom view. The nice thing about this is a teacher can go ahead and project this on a screen, and they're not showing any of the answers coming in from the individual students. At the same time, if I start to see here that the students, by switching over to a teacher view, as they answer the questions and they're coming in, we have 2 students, but let's say we had a roster of 25, and I start to see that all of them, for whatever reason, are answering A, and I see that there's a trap door that they're falling through, I can go ahead and I can actually lock this question down. I can address that with the class, and I can go ahead and push the next question out. So this would be the teacher view that they would see if they were not projecting it on the whiteboard or onto the screen in front of the class for the whole class to see. It's more anonymous when I'm switching over to classroom view, still being able to lock down answers if I wish to do so, and still being able to push the next question out when I choose. So the students have answered here. We're going to go to the next question.
I also just want to mention, too, that you can project the classroom view up on a screen, and you can log in on a second device. If a teacher wants to pull out their cell phone and log in, or maybe you have an iPad or a tablet along with a laptop, and you can be logged in multiple places at once. So as a teacher, I could walk around and look at my tablet and monitor those the other view with the live answers coming in while projecting this.
Yeah, and ideally, you could also even just have it up on your computer as another browser. If you're using like Google Chrome for one, and then you pull up Firefox or something like that, as long as you're not on the same browser, you would be able to use this, or if you are on the same device. So that's a great point that Carrie Ann makes. So again, answers are coming in. And we're going to move on to the next question. Now, let's say that we're pressed for time and the class is coming to a close, or perhaps the fire alarm or something goes off, and I would still want the kids to be able to finish this at a later time. If you'll see down here on this link, I can always push this out to finish it as a self-guided, where they can go ahead and complete this on their own pace at a later time, perhaps later that evening, or if they have time later in the day where they can log back in. And the nice thing about this is you don't necessarily have to be a one-to-one school, or you don't need this as just an in-class tool. With the ability anymore, with the power that these kids have in the palm of their hands realistically at any point in the day, this allows them to kind of go out and use this at their leisure should you want to finish it as self-guided. So we're going to go on to the final question here and just wrap this up. And really, then we're going to move on to really what the biggest component of all this is as well. So I see here that all the students have answered. We've gone through. You'll see a little bar filled in along the top here that we've gone 4 for 4 on the questions. So we're going to go ahead and end this quiz. Now, the system's going to go ahead and calculate all the scores across the board. So it's going to take a look at an overview for the average class score being 63%. You'll see questions 3 and 4 were the strongest. Question 2 was the weakest. And then down below, you can always send this out to a CSV if you wanted to for data purposes. And you can also go down and take a look here, question by question. And if I want to expand on this arrow, you can start to see some of the, I guess, not only the distractors, but the rationale behind what would make that up for why the student might be picking the incorrect answer.
You can also look for patterns here as well. Hold on to that next one, like question 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to if we both picked
Sure.
the same one. We didn't. So you can see half of the class picked C and half picked D. So maybe that's a hot topic for debate. You could just you could show this and open it up for the class to talk about, why half picked C and why half picked D. But sometimes you can really see patterns here too. I was in a classroom where it was 17 students and 16 of them picked the same wrong answer. So just another case where you can talk about the misconceptions that are happening and really show them this and look at the counts. And students are usually pretty amazed at that too, and they realize they're not alone, this is common, and it really makes them aware of that misconception next time they're dealing with the skill.
And then you'll see another helpful tip at the bottom that now that this quiz has been created, it's housed in your library of quizzes. So you've provided it to these two students, but that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to move on from there. You can always send it out to other groups as well if you wish. Let's say that I wanted to get a feel for this student right here that answered this question incorrectly. I can drill into this student, Michael G. And I can get a look at Michael G's student profile page within Kandoolu. So this is where, again, a little bit more of the personalized aspects come in when they're creating their own user profile within the system. You're going to see that as a teacher, we've tried to make this easy where you don't always have to contact support or anything like that. You're going to be able to go in and you can take a look at their username and their password. You can get them logged in for themselves. You can always edit the profile or reset the password for them if they can't remember it or if they get locked out for whatever reason. And then it gives you a nice high-level overview here of Michael. You know, some of his interests. Has many interests, as you can see. Preferred learning style would be listening, and then you can kind of get a feel for where they are in the student groups that you might have created. At the bottom, if there were multiple quizzes here, you would see those listed. Any resources that you've sent to Michael in the past, this is going to be going out today since the quiz is completed. And then any trophies that Michael has gathered over time. So you'll see that the self-guided, solo flight, and you can click into these to get a description for really what he or she was doing to obtain this specific trophy and a little date of which that occurred. Now, while we're in the student profile page here, along the left-hand side, we can take a look at a few other things here, such as the Resources tab. So, Quizzes is where we would house any of our library for quizzes we've created. Resources is going to take us to this library. And there's a couple ways that you can go about hunting down resources. There are featured resources. There are ones that you've bookmarked in the past. And these stars along the top are simply a rating that's been provided on this specific resource. And then any recent ratings that have occurred. But if I wanted to go out and I wanted to search for resources, there's a couple ways that I can go about doing that. And while I'm thinking of it, students can also go back in and they can rate resources as well. So maybe they learned a lot from it, but it was boring or not very engaging, or vice versa. They can always make a little note and rate a resource because we're always seeking feedback on all those fronts from both the teacher and the student as well. So there's a couple filtering options here for searching for resources. If you actually know the standard code, you can always do that. If not, you can go down and you can search from students or educator suggested resources. And then ultimately you can type in a keyword. So if I wanted to go out and search for 4th grade math resources, I can go ahead and do so. From there, you can drill down further. What kind of resource? What level of resource? Anything that's been bookmarked, whether it's non-flash or perhaps something from Common Sense Ed. And I'm going to let Carrie Ann kind of talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, Common Sense Media is a national nonprofit based out of California. And it really started as a company that was helping parents to decide what was appropriate as far as video games or movies. I think they would even do books and different software. But they really started to get in the education realm with Common Sense Education. And what they do is they also vet educational resources. So if you want to check that box, Mike, then maybe we can find one and show them
Absolutely.
what they do. So what we've done is we partnered with them. And every time they vet a resource that we have in our bank, we stamp it with the Common Sense Education seal. So when you click down on a resource to view more about it, you'll see a Common Sense Ed logo right there. And then if you click on that, it will take you right to their review of this resource. Now the difference is they vet the entire website or the entire app, like Matific, I guess is how you say it, and they would vet the entire thing as a whole. Whereas we vet individual activities within that website. So they might vet 6th grade Khan Academy, for example, but we would vet a certain video that's in Khan Academy 6th grade. So we're at a much more granular level, but they also include things that we don't, like pros, cons, screenshots, and other teacher reviews. So the partnership really gives teachers a really a big picture look at the resource.
Mm-hmm. And again, just looking through the other tabs under resources, you can always go back to anything that you've sent in the past, anything that you've bookmarked. By bookmarking it, you'll notice this little area up here. When I check that, that's going to turn pink. This is just something notifying me that this is a resource I really liked and might want to go back to at a later date.
And earlier when I mentioned that you could bypass quizzes completely and just go to the resource bank, this is also where you can do that. You can just choose a resource by standard code, keyword, or just search the whole bank, and then you can actually send it right to your students from the screen. So you can send it to a group of students, your entire roster, or you can just type in names of whoever needs that resource.
Yep, absolutely. And then one other item under here, you can go down to the students section. You can always search for your students. One thing that's nice here, again, is just kind of you being able to almost be like a system administrator as well for some of these kids. You can always show these usernames and passwords by checking off on that box. That will bring all of them up. And this is just an entire list here of all of these students for this particular teacher. This folder in particular is always fun.
Creative.
And then you can go to groups that you've created in the past.
And we also do have Google Classroom integration. So if any of your teachers use Google Classroom, with one click, literally, it can pull all of their entire roster over, along with the groups that they've created in Google Classroom. So that makes it really easy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing you'll see here throughout is just how user-friendly the system really is, how intuitive it is, and it's a very powerful tool at the end of the day. One other thing I'll just touch on here is the trophy aspect of everything. And again, this just goes back through where you could have trophies based upon skills itself, different general trophies and overview, student-specific, skills-based. And if you scroll down through here, you'll just kind of get a feel for the library that we're continuing to build out. So as noted at the beginning, there's a great help section with regards to Kandoolu. You can always go back there for literature on it, videos, blogs. The support team here is really great. And then ultimately, we're going to be following this up with any other slides that we might have or information on this. But I'd like to open the floor for any questions that might be posed from the audience, and that way we can try to address those here while we're with one another. So a couple of our case studies here and just some review that we have from ways that we've seen different perspectives of Kandoolu over the last year or so.
A lot of them we've really talked about already. Some are pretty obvious. Teachers, when giving pre and post tests, talked about the misconceptions, how important they are. Small group work. You can group, many different ways on this. You can put somebody who really gets it in with the struggling learners, or you can pull a group of kids aside for enrichment or to move on to the next topic. We've seen, it uses bell ringers. And then we keep talking about adjusting the pace while you're instructing as well, which can be really powerful, so you're not wasting time in the classroom. Some things we see on the student side is that they're loving to take ownership of their learning, and they feel like they are taking ownership, especially when they go in and they complete those resources and they rate the resources. We have one teacher in Wilkinsburg. She likes to send out about 6 or 7 resources to each level of students. So if you score below grade level, you're getting 6 or 7. If you score at, above, you're getting 6 or 7. And the students get to choose what they want to work on then. So maybe some work better with a video, and they'd rather watch a video than do a practice activity or something like that. So we've seen that used many times in the classroom. Some teachers like to let students set their own goals. So they might give a pre-test and then let the students set a goal for a post-test. We find that they work harder to achieve it when they set their own goals. And then they seem to love the trophies. They love getting in there and rating resources. If there's any broken links, students have power to report those and get them fixed right away. And it's really all about increasing engagement and ownership for students. And so we just have 2 different perspectives. Teachers are loving it. They love the real time. They love that they can adjust their instruction. And kids love that it's on a tablet, number one, and they're liking all the engagement aspects within it. And then here are just some comments that we had from teacher surveys we sent out. And so you'll see a theme that Mike mentioned earlier, which is ease of use. It's really intuitive. Kids ask to get on because they want to go to those resources. And it just seems like a blend of several other resources that we use. we've been compared to a lot of different competitors, but I guess some things that really make us stand out are not only the content, which is standards aligned and PA core eligible content aligned, but the resources and the fact that you can Google resources and find a million of things, but this actually points teachers in the right direction so they can save a lot of time and see what's aligned to their curriculum. And then also just the fact that teachers do have control and can target the students exactly where they need to be. So that's it for now. You're always welcome to email us at info@kandoolu.com. We always love to hear what tools you're currently using. If you have any feedback for us, whether it's constructive criticism or things that you like and you want us to keep. We also have a free trial that starts right now and goes through, I think it's June 15th or middle of June. So you can use Kandoolu for free through the rest of the school year. And we also are on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And like we keep mentioning, we have a help center available as well at help.kandoolu.com. Any other questions?
All right, great. Well, certainly appreciate everyone's time here this afternoon. Feel free to reach out at your convenience. And we look forward to working with you here through Kandoolu and everything else within Ed Insight down the road. Everyone have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.